Hi guys, welcome to a new video. So today I'm going to show you how to change the rear disc pads all by yourself. Alright, so I bought these brake pads from KTM Service Center for 238 bucks. Alright, so let's get started. First, let's unscrew the wheel nut. Okay, we will have to remove the rear wheel to replace these brake pads. Alright, so the first step is we're going to unscrew the wheel nut of the rear wheel axle, and I will also show you how to check if your disc pads are worn out. Okay, so once that's done, you will have to pull the axle out. So to do that, I would recommend you to use a wooden piece and then hit it with a hammer so that you don't damage the thread of the axle. All right, so this is how I did it. And now you will have to pull the axle out completely. Make sure you're holding the wheel. Yeah, and this becomes a little difficult if you do not have a padlock stand. Okay, and for the ones who do not have a padlock stand, you can use the same technique that I showed you in the previous video. Okay, so now what you're supposed to do is you will have to remove the disc hub first, right, so that the disc plate is not damaged. Okay, so carefully try to pull the hub. Yeah, and this can also leave damages on the rim, so make sure it doesn't affect any of these. And then yeah, I just dropped the wheel in a cinematic view, and make sure you don't drop it towards the opposite side where the disc plate is. Okay, and that can severely damage your disc plate. And here is how my bike looks without the rear wheel. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to check if your disc pads are worn out. All right, there is a very little amount of the pad left. Okay, I will remove it first. So you have two pins here which holds the pads in place. Okay, you will have to pull the pins out. Make sure you carefully keep it somewhere. And then you have a small piece of rod which is holding them. Okay, just push that out with a screwdriver. And the disc pads are out. All right, so you don't have to remove the disc pads to check if they are worn out. Okay, so I'm going to compare this with the new disc pads and show you. So now I will show you how to check if your disc pads are worn out. Okay, so when you compare the new disc pads with the old one, by their looks, the new one looks a little fat compared to the old one. So I'm going to show you a picture of how a new disc pad and an old disc pad looks. So this is how a worn out disc pad looks. You don't have to remove these pads out to check if they are worn out. You can just use a screwdriver, okay, to see how much of the pad is left. So let's clean the hub first before fixing the new ones. Okay, so that round thing is called the caliper. So these new disc pads are manufactured, packed and sent to us. So I would recommend you all to rub it on a rough surface so that the pads turn a little rough, okay, and has a good contact with the disc plate. Okay, so you don't have to do anything much. Just find a cement a platform like this and just rub it and make it a little rough. This is done so that the brakes work effectively from the time I fix them. Otherwise, I will have to ride the bike for a kilometer or two for it to get adjusted. All right. So this is how the braking system works. The pads hold on to the plate, okay, and then stops the wheel. Yeah, and this is how the pads are placed. Okay, and push the rod in to hold those disc pads on place, and make sure you put these small pins in. And I'm going to apply some grease on the bearing because this is an important part that helps the wheel rotate. Okay, so it's always better to keep that part clean and neat. All right, and I'm going to fix the sprocket on top. So before you push the wheel back in place, make sure that you loosen the wheel adjustment nut. Yeah, and this is the same nut that you use to tighten the chain. Okay, so just make sure you loosen them before you push the wheel back. Yeah, let's roll the wheel back in place. So this is the wheel axle that we initially pulled out. We will have to clean this before we put this back in place. Okay, so there will be a lot of dust, mud and all of that accumulated on it because the wheel is entirely fitted on this, right? So let's apply some grease after we clean it and rub it all over. Now let's pull the chain back onto the sprocket, pushing the wheel a little in. Yeah. So we will have to lift the wheel a little up and then push the axle back in place. When the axle goes half the way in, the wheel stays in place now. Okay, so there is a small spacer on the other side. Okay, make sure you clean it well before you put that back in place. It's called a spacer as it creates a space between the rim and the disc hub. Okay, so after it's put back in place, push the axle in completely. You can use that wooden piece that you had to hit it from the other end. Okay, and the axle slides in. In our next video, I will show you how to check if your chain is loose and how to fix that by yourself. So let's put the nut back and tighten it. Before putting the nut back, the chain was adjusted. Okay, so after you tighten this nut, make sure you also tighten the chain adjustment nut. Yeah, after which we are all set. Make sure you pump the brake pedal before you take it out for a test ride. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. We will catch you up with a new video shortly. Take care.